Okay, we'll go ahead and start with introductions and go around the room. My name is Jess Stone. I'm the Natural Landscape for Pierce County Parks, and I am the chair. And I fill the role of organizations that work with volunteers and community greening projects. I'll go ahead and hand it off to Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn Suxdorf. I am vice chair, and I am an independent consultant, but also sit on a board of a development company, so represent development, private and public, a variety of other areas of this, I'm sorry, I can't talk, of activity. You can check that out on the roster. And I will turn it over to Dan.
Yeah, hi everyone, Dan Hintz. I'll freeze there for a second. New member of the council here, and representing municipal arborist or urban forester. I'm the urban forest manager with the city of Issaquah. And I will pop it over to Adam.
Good morning, I'm Adam Iroldi. I work with Washington State Parks as their Horticulture Program Supervisor. I'm based out of Burlington, and been on the council now 1 year. And let's see, I'll pass it to Zandria.
Thanks, I'm Zandria Michaud. I am a Kent City Council member, and I represent the Association of Washington Cities. And I will pass it to Megan.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon. Megan Dunn on the Snohomish County Council, and I'm representing the Washington State Association of Counties. I will pass it to Tristan.
Hi, I'm Tristan Fields. I'm a consulting arborist out of Seattle area, and I am representing private arborists, horticulturists, and foresters. Oh, okay, let's see. How about Andy? Oh no, can we do DNR also now? Or should we just stick to we're just going around the room, doesn't matter. Andy Tate.
You're speaking, you can pick whoever you want. Andy Tate, Assistant Division Manager of Community Land Owner Assistance with DNR. Let's go to Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim Kohlhauff. I work with WSU Extension out of Spokane. I think I'm here to represent Extension and higher education. Let's go to, how about Jason?
Thanks, Tim. Hi, I'm Jason Johns. I'm an arborist with SDOT, and I represent public and private development. And let's pass it off to, thought I had it. Colleen.
Hi, I am Colleen Adams-Shupe. I am from the Yakima Area Arboretum, and I believe I represent nonprofits and environmental protection type agencies, I guess. So, let's see. Has JB gone already?
I think that's me. This is Jessie Bloom. Private consulting in the Northwest has gone on.
Jessie's cutting out, but she represents PNWISA, if you guys didn't hear that.
Hey, just to keep it moving, I'll go ahead and hop in. Mike Carey, I'm the Urban Forest Program Manager here with the City of Tacoma, and I represent municipal foresters. I don't think we've heard from Celesta yet.
Awesome, thank you, Mike. My name is Celesta Kalachi. I'm with the DNR, and I represent the southwest portion of the state in any urban forestry community needs. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Zandria. Actually, I think you're muted. Oh,
So Zandria's already gone. So I'll just step in. This is right, Zandria, did you? Yeah, I thought so. Jason, are you here or not? No, it doesn't.
I
Oh
am
yeah, there
here.
you are. There you are.
But I've already introduced myself. Try again.
I can go next. Robert Phipps from WSDOT, and I represent the state agency. And go to Margaret next.
There we go.
I think I can hear you all. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Right. I am in Oaxaca, Mexico. I just came from walking through a blockado, which is a blockade of the streets, like in a really big way. And they are protesting, it's the teachers, specifically the PE teachers, who are protesting having not been paid in a while, and their working conditions. And I got to tell you, it is so peaceful and so chill that it is quite a contrast with what I'm seeing in the United States. But that's just me.
Keep it moving. Stephen Baker.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephen Baker. I'm the Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager for the Forest Service Pacific Northwest and Alaska regions, based in Portland, and I serve cover Oregon, Washington, and Alaska as the federal rep on this committee. Good to be with you.
We'll hand it off to Duane.
Hi, I'm Duane Job with Job's Nursery in Pasco, Washington, and I represent WSNLA.
Joe, I don't think you've had the floor yet.
Hi there, my name is Joe Cisneros, consulting arborist with Danny Resource Group in Seattle, and just here to observe and learn. Thank you.
Jonathan.
Jonathan Smith, and I work for Spokane County Parks and Recreation. I'm a park planner, land acquisitions, landscape architect, and I don't exactly know who I'm representing because I said I was open to representing or being the at-large member or yeah. So I'm here. And I don't know who hasn't gone because there's a lot of people on this call, so I'm going to rely on the people who haven't been called on to probably speak up and say I haven't gone.
I think Whit, have you gone, Whit, yet?
I haven't. Thanks for catching that. I appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Whit Boughton. I am serving as the public or private utility arborist here. And I currently work at Seattle City Light, where I'm a strategic advisor, working on vegetation management, arboriculture needs, and wildfire mitigation.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else?
Might want to get Ben in there. Have we?
Ben. We always forget Ben.
Hey everyone, Ben Thompson, Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager with DNR. And seeing has Tristan, have you gone yet?
I did, but I don't think Michael Oxman or Kari Otto has Kari gone?
Hi friends, I'm Michael Oxman. I'm a professional tree surgeon in Seattle, Washington, and just a member of the public sitting in as a educational process for me. It's great to have you people here volunteering. Thanks so much for offering to help our state.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Carrie Otto, and I work with DNR. I'm the Assistant Deputy Supervisor over Wildland Fire Management and Forest Resilience.
Did we get everybody? Okay. Thank you so much. So one of the things we want to call out is that this is our first meeting of 2026. So a couple big things exciting for new members and people who may just be getting started with the council. Two big things happen. One is we welcome our new members and the new seats, and a couple of them have already been called out during the introductions. And then also it's going to be elections. So it's going to be handing over leadership of the council to the new chair and vice chair, and also just firming up our committees. So with that, I do want to point out a few of our new members, very excited. So let's go ahead and start off. Adam. Thought I saw him on here.
Who are you looking for?
Just wanted to cover a few of our new members. I think we got them all, but does anyone want to, let me just put it this way. Reaching out to our new members, anyone want to just kind of say anything or step up, or another quick introduction? Got Jonathan.
Do you want more background? Know more about
kind of floor is yours if there's anything you want to point out. Also, anything you want to looking forward to, or about your practice within the arboriculture world and what you're looking forward to.
Well, one of the reasons why I joined this group, or I volunteered to join this board, was on my involvement with the Spokane County Wildfire Mitigation Coalition. And we go together, we work together with DNR, county governments and agencies, and we go identify projects and for wildfire mitigation, and that's usually in the WA area, and so that's one of the things that got me interested in working with you all, is looking for maybe even more collaboration across state for these kinds of efforts. I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, but that's what I got.
Oh, that was perfect. Thank you so much. And
yeah, I can jump in if that works.
Oh, please.
Dan Pins here again. I got to meet a smaller group of you a couple weeks ago when there was kind of a welcome, so I gave a little bit of this context already, but I'll say personally, I'm fairly new to the urban community forestry field. I've been in this role with City of Issaquah for not quite 3 years, and this is the first dedicated staff member to anything specifically urban forestry related. There's been kind of different iterations of roles that have touched on this a little bit in the past in Issaquah, so say personally, and also for my position and program here at the city, really excited to learn from folks on this council, and also if you can provide some of the context from smaller or mid-sized cities in the region or in the state that are looking at launching something like this, things that have gone well, some of the challenges associated with that too. So I feel like I've had a couple years to kind of settle in there and then kind of start to learn what building a brand new program looks like. And for a little context, I come from did most of my work kind of prior to this nonprofit conservation work, managing ecological restoration projects, a lot of salmon recovery, riparian work, working with Mountains of Sound Greenway Trust for folks maybe on the west side or central Washington that are familiar with that organization. And then pivoted to this field, so certified arborist, have my tree risk assessment qualification, but looking to continue to build those skills and also build a hopefully effective program here in Issaquah. So yeah, a little more context on kind of where I'm coming from, I guess.
Thank you. Yes, I was just looking for Levi. Did not see him on here.
Which is true.
Okay.
Sorry, Jess, I said that I was muted. Adam, it does show that Adam's here.
Oh, how did I miss Adam? Adam.
Hey there. I guess I've been on the commission for a year now. But my background in urban forestry, with starting with just a arborist in Medford, Oregon, for 6 years. Been certified arborist since 2011, and working now in Washington for a while with Skagit Fisheries Enhancement, doing riparian restoration work as well. So. See you there, Dan, and I've been working with state parks now 3.5 years.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for everyone on the selection and also helping with recruitment for these positions. So we are going to look at, let's see, I'm going to check the agenda. I think let's go ahead and take a quick review of that. Let me share my screen. This is what I get for switching into a small laptop instead of my typical multi-screens.
That struggle is real.
Introduction, new members, review and approve agenda in pretty minutes. So we're going to take a look at the agenda. Please, anyone call out anything if you have any objections. Action items from previous meeting, election, equity moments. Megan, I have you down. 5-minute break. Hand it off to Stephen for the Forest Service update. Legislative and budget outlook. Jen, thank you for joining us for this today. Updates from Ben, covering meeting dates, going over the work plan, upcoming legislation, council roundtable, and wrap up. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding the agenda? Yes, Lynn.
Just a nitpick. My name is misspelled on the agenda, and since it's an official document, my name's not S-Y-K, it's S-U-K. And that's in the third box down on review and approve agenda. It's it's the fifth box down, elect 2026. Yeah.
For the record, Lynn, I would not call correcting the spelling of your name as nitpicky. I think that's totally legitimate.
It looks right in the roster too, Lynn, so that's good.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes, yeah. And in the minutes, it's right. So it's just an odd place out. But you know me, I read everything I vote on.
Okay, a vote to approve the meeting minutes. Everyone good? Thumbs up? With an edit.
You need a motion.
I would move to approve the agenda,
I've
Jess.
been doing this for 2 years.
I would move to approve the agenda as presented with the edit.
Second.
Second, all in favor, thumbs up. Any objection? All right, let's move on to meeting minutes. We have it spelled here. Yes, there it is. Okay. Phew. Any comments, questions, or concerns regarding last month's meeting minutes? Also, everyone should have received this in the meeting invite.
I was giving others the opportunity, but I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Hey, thumbs up. Everyone good? Thumbs up. Okay. Meeting minutes and agenda approved. Now we'll move to the next item. Okay, action items from previous meeting. Lynn, you had a few identified. Let's see. Action items, is this particularly involving regarding the letter, correct?
That was, that was the one of them. There were a couple of others. But Ben, you were going to provide a couple of updates on the action items.
Oh, I just, my action item was to provide the slides of my presentation to the council from last meeting, which did.
Yeah. Did everyone get those? And has the letter gone, Jess?
The letter went out a while ago. The letter went out last year, so
yeah,
didn't really hear much of a response. It went through 2 different channels, so hopefully either the response got. I've not received a response, but the letter has been submitted directly to Commissioner Up the Grove.
I think we covered. I'm sorry, Jess. Go ahead.
Yes, so the letter has been submitted.
Yeah, I don't think there were any outstanding action items other than those, Ben, Jess, if I recall correctly.
Just to let everyone else know, we've decided to put this little section in the meeting minutes, so you're going to see this every meeting of just following up on last meeting's action items or things we want to do follow up. So please, if there's anything you want to add or call out, this is also a good time to do it as a follow up from the last meeting.
And I think it would be really nice if we could add that section to we do have it in the minutes. I think that should become a permanent part of our minutes as well. Then everybody knows that that's kind of old, ongoing things we need to resolve. So good job in putting them in the minutes.
Okay, and with the schedule, we're going to move on to council elections. So new year, new group of electing the chair and vice chair. These are the only leadership positions on the council. I want to say thank you for everyone. I have served as chair for 2 years and vice chair for 1. So thank you, and time to hand it off. We only had, oh, yes, Lynn.
Well, I was just going to say that we need to ask if there are any new or additional nominations before we go on. Because if someone is interested, I think it's good to allow that to happen.
Our current nominations, as part of the last meeting, is of course Chair Lynn, who is our current vice chair, and for vice chair, Witt has stepped up for that position. So as Lynn pointed out, is anyone else interested in the chair or vice chair positions? And just for a bit of background, what this includes is, of course, supporting in the running of the meetings, but it also includes once a month getting together, setting up the agenda, looking at action items, and it also includes supporting the subcommittees and working on the nominations. Did I miss anything, Lynn?
No, I don't think so. Well, and any urgent items that come up that need to be addressed by the council, but that hasn't happened since I've been here, so.
So putting out on the floor, any last minute nominations? I think this is one of the first times I've ever seen a unanimous straight across only 2 nominations. Ben and Elizabeth, how would you like us to do the voting for this?
I think in the past we had used Zoom, right? Because that had a private message option in the chat where you could private message your vote to like Elizabeth to tally. Since we don't have that option now, perhaps, I don't know. But we didn't use Zoom. We didn't use Zoom last year, so I wonder if we did like a separate email. Megan?
Yeah, if it would be helpful, I could make a recommendation.
Sure.
I think there should be 2 separate motions and then a voice vote for each. A motion for the chair and then a motion for the vice chair. You could also vote by acclamation, and if there's no objection, then it's a unanimous acceptance. But I didn't think that under Open Public Meetings Act, you could have private votes.
Oh, okay.
A secret ballot, yeah.
I could be very wrong about that. I think with only one nominee for each position, a voice vote is probably appropriate in that case, right? So,
and it does have to be 2 votes. That's
2 motions.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we'll bring the first motion to the table. Do I have the motion to move forward with Lynn Skisdorf? You know, I have to ask, did I pronounce that correctly?
It's Suchsdorf.
It is Skisdorf.
Very German. You should hear how students pronounce it.
To move Lynn Skisdorf as the chair for 2000. Yes, Adam.
I make a motion for Lynn Skisdorf as the chair.
You want to have a second?
I second that.
Second that? All right. All in favor, thumbs up.
Aye.
Yes, this is paid in full.
Hey.
Read the only nay, you're not allowed a nay.
Credit card or something.
I will take it hand up is also a yay. If you did like me, you click on that instead of the thumb up. Excellent, thank you. Lynn, you are now the chair.
Thank you, I think.
JD, I think we need to have you mute, please.
Sorry.
All right. And for vice chair, do I have a motion for Whit Bouton? Did I pronounce that correctly, Bouton?
Bouton, totally. But you know, I answer to a lot.
Thank you.
I would like to nominate Mr. Bouton.
I second for Whit Bouton.
Yes, I would move by acclamation, Whit as vice chair.
We'll make it official. Thumbs up. Everyone good? I react or physical thumb up. No thumbs down, no nays. All right. Thank you very much, chair and vice chair. And with that, I am now going to hand it over to your official chair.
So Jess, before we move on, I just, for a point of order, just to keep track, I thought Jason made the motion there with Tristan seconding it. Is that, and then Lynn came in and made another motion. So I just want to make sure I have the right motions accounted for. Is that true, Jason? You made a motion?
I did indeed make a motion, and I think Lynn's did like second motion kind of where it's by acclamation. I guess that's universality, right? And it's like we got one candidate, everybody throw it up for Whit. And we threw it up we gave all our thumbs. Whit has all our thumbs. Please give back our thumbs, Whit.
Do we need to decide like which motion we want to proceed with then? Like Jason's motion or Lynn's motion?
Well, it was kind of an amendment to the motion. There was a Jason's motion, which was seconded, and then I I said do it by acclamation, which is an addendum to his motion. So it would be, both of those would be included in the verbiage.
Like those nested dolls, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Too many years of meetings.
I would like to amend my motion according to Lynn.
I'll second the amended motion.
Met Elizabeth?
Does that resolve it for you, Elizabeth?
Yep.
Megan, hand up. Yes.
Yeah, then point of information, if we're gonna get into the nitty gritty, I would just add, the chair could just ask if there's any opposed, and then close that up.
You said it as thumbs down, but also any opposed. I don't think we had any. Okay, thank you. Are we okay to move to the next agenda item?
For equity moment.
Equity moment, Megan.
Hang on, folks. We still have to do your subcommittee assignments.
Did we?
No. I mean, do we have new assignments?
Well, you have new folks on board and folks that have stepped off. So that was part of the agenda.
Certainly, we can cover this really quickly. We have a few minutes.
Yeah, because I mean, on the agenda it says under that subcommittees are filled, and so I assume that was the response that we discussed, and that we would, if a vacancy comes up, we would have nominations or interest. But Jess, your thoughts? Megan, your thoughts?
Can we give a reminder of who's on what subcommittees? Is that on the itinerary or the spreadsheet that was sent?
We did not have those on the spreadsheet.
Do you have it on the work plan so I can call those out and we can do a quick review?
And Tristan you have your hands up, Tristan. So go ahead.
I was just going to suggest it might be nice to give the new members an opportunity to join a subcommittee at this point. If they're interested, I'm sure there's room.
I mean, that's a good point. Other thoughts related to this? Whit, did I see you have a hand up or something?
Oh, I seconded or thumbs up Tristan's sentiment. I love that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as an excellent point, Tristan. Do we have, Ben, do you have a roster, or Elizabeth, a roster of our subcommittees that you could put up on the screen?
That I can pull that up.
Oh, thanks, Jess.
Okay, I will jump to this. We've been tracking the subcommittees within the work plan. So the first one and probably the most active one is our equity subcommittee. Tim, we have you as the lead, with Adam, Mike, and Nadine, Margaret, and Whit. Overall, for those of you interested, it's really looking at the equity guiding principles and how we are applying this in our landscape, whether it's in our practices and also who we are bringing on as to our membership. A big thing that Equity Subcommittee did in 2025 is really look at board membership and recruitment, came up with a great documentation to support that. And also they brought together, which we're going to have in a moment, which is kind of the equity moment.
And Tim, do you have any other input on that summary?
Oh, yes. Tim, anything you would like to add?
No, I think you covered it really well. We would love to have if anybody's interested,
We'd love to have more people join the subcommittee. And this is my last year on the council, so be thinking about who might like to take over in the future. But love to have more people.
Thanks,
If you are interested, please, you can just shoot a message to Lynn and Tim. The next one is the Legislative Response Subcommittee. So we have Mike Carey as the lead, Jason and Tristan supporting. So it's really looking at monitoring bills, legislator, and just things that really should catch our attention, call to action. Mike, anything you would like to add?
Oh, that pretty much sums it up.
So currently, those are our two committees. The other two that will may come up is, of course, the nominations committee, which is the chair and vice chair, as well as interesting staff, and that comes up towards the end of the year. And then also, as needed, should DNR need to assemble a team, whether it's grant review or any other action items, we put that together.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, the grant review committee is very interesting. I've done that several years, and I find that very informative about what's happening in the state. It's a great opportunity to kind of get a sense of other areas of the state and their interests. So that's something. And I really like the idea of, if you are interested in these and you can review them, reach out to the chair for more information. If you are interested, please email, or I'd say email the chair of that committee and CC me, so that we know your interest and can get you on that committee. Really want these subcommittees to be people who are interested in the topic, the subject of the committee, and the functions, and really, I think that's the way to kind of move forward and move on to our agenda. But let us know. I mean, and even if later in the year you decide, I'm really interested in legislation, or I'm really interested in, let us know, because your involvement is critical to the success of the organization. So, any other comments? Any questions? Would that be a reasonable way to move forward, folks? Okay, we'll do that. I see anyone dissenting with that idea? Okay, very good. Well, let's move on then to our equity moment. Megan, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First off, I appreciate being asked to lead this equity moment. I will share a little bit of background information, and then I have a slide to share, a picture to share. And I'm just going to dive right into it. So it's my understanding that we get to kind of pick whatever we want to work on. So I picked something kind of heavy, but my thought was to talk a little bit about dismantling white supremacy culture and embracing anti-racism. So I know that's a big topic for 15 minutes. I actually thought we only had 5. But this is just to kind of dip your toe into embracing this kind of style for understanding the world that we are presently operating in. So I'm sharing this with my background as a cisgender white woman. I grew up in Kentucky. I had a very racist father. I had to learn a lot. I had to unlearn a lot of harmful beliefs and just background, I guess. I've attended a lot of anti-racism trainings. I've read a lot of books, and I'm still absolutely on this journey. So I just wanted to introduce some topics today around dismantling white supremacy. And I'll share something called the tenets of white supremacy, so that you can identify that in your work and work on this committee and work on the antidote to that. So one thing that I do on my committees is to have community agreements, so that we all have an understanding of where we're coming from. So I chair something called our Law and Justice Commission, which has people from all backgrounds. It has community members who have been impacted by police violence. It includes law enforcement. So we had to create a world of trust so that we could move forward with ideas and talk about ideas and how we're working in law and justice. One way we do that to create a safer space, not a safe place, because in some ways space can always become unsafe at the turn of a hat. So these are community agreements that we all agree to as a way to kind of open up our meetings together, which is just one good way to kind of start off things. So our community agreements are that all are here trying to improve our system, be open to hearing others' ideas and inputs. Going slow does not mean things are not working, and that's really important in government. Disagreement does not mean dislike. Listen to learn, and we can agree without being disagreeable. So I just offer that as a way to have an example on how you can start off your meetings. So I think it's important to remember when you're thinking about anti-racism that we will often say the wrong thing. So be prepared on how you will address that. A lot of times people come to meetings when we're talking about equity or race or racism, and you're afraid to speak or you speak too much. So just be prepared and know how to have a real apology, but also be willing to be vulnerable and to make mistakes and say the wrong thing, because it's really important in learning. So I think it's, long story short, it's okay to say the wrong thing. So this is from the website called dismantlingracism.org, and it just sets up the frame of a white supremacy culture, which is reproduced by all institutions in our society, in particular the media, our educational system, Western science. It's really the idea that race is a biological truth, with the white race as the ideal, top of the hierarchy, and that there's central roles in that power structure that reproduce that idea of white supremacy. And we are working in one now. Government is absolutely based on this idea of like a heteronormative ideal, and then everyone else is other. So white supremacy culture is an artificial, historically constructed culture which expresses, justifies, and binds together the U.S. white supremacy system. It's the glue that binds together white-controlled institutions into systems and white-controlled systems and into the global white supremacy system. So I'm just going to share, and I've never shared on this screen. Okay, if I share my screen. Okay, can everybody see this characteristics of white supremacy? Hopefully. Okay, I see. Okay.
That's good, Megan.
Perfect. So this was a study done by a number of authors listed here that looked at all the different characteristics of this culture. So it goes on to the second page. I'm not going to read all of this, but this is just a helpful guide, and this is years of work. But I'll just read kind of the top, and then I'm going to focus more on only one way to do right as an example. So the tenets of this culture are perfectionism, sense of urgency, defensiveness, quantity over quality, worship of the written word, only one right way, paternalism, either or thinking, power, hoarding, fear of open conflict, individualism, I'm the only one, progress is bigger or more, objectivity, and the right to comfort. So all of them have kind of an example of what that tenet is, and then an antidote. And then kind of the antidote quick start guide here is to create a culture of appreciation, choose integrity, foster a culture of learning, understand that defensiveness is linked to fear, and identify other antidotes all the way already in place. So the one I wanted to focus on today is only one right way. So that is the belief that there is only one right way to do things and that people will learn and adapt to it. When they do not, then something is wrong with them. The antidote to this is to accept that there are many ways to get to the same point or same goal. Notice and name behavior when folks or groups push a one right way. Acknowledge that you have a lot to learn from community's partner way of doing, being willing to adapt, and never assume that you or the organization knows what's best for others. And one kind of real life example of this is being on time, right? So a lot of times, I mean, it's hard in government when we have an agenda and we have meetings that have to start on time, and the public is coming to meetings, and you're responsible to the public for that. But there's think of it as like always having to be on time is like a tenet of this structure, which has very harmful roots to it. So another example is there's a school district where a lot of kids of color, particularly the Native American kids, were often missing a lot of school, and the school district assumed that the parents didn't care, they weren't prioritizing education, and they just thought the kids were lazy, they were sleeping in, and they weren't coming to school. And in fact, the kids were actually missing school because they were part of the salmon harvest. So every year at a certain time of year, the salmon run, and as a culture, everyone is involved in preparing the salmon harvest, from fishing to drying the meat and smoking the meat. And instead of assuming that these kids were lazy, the school district could have a culture of acceptance or learning, and maybe it's counted as a science class, or and maybe it's a field trip and everybody gets to go. And it's hard because they never know when the salmon are going to run. They never know when exactly it's going to take place. But imagine a culture where that could be accepted, and there's a process for allowing that work to happen. So that was So can you imagine what a school schedule would look like if it were accepting, where everyone would be able to learn from it, and there isn't that sense of perfectionism or one right way to do things. So I wanted to just open it up to any questions. And as I said, like, this is definitely a heavy topic. I just wanted to kind of introduce this tool for understanding tenants. And then, sorry, Jess, I'll get to you in a second, but the other thought around this is that if you are going to move forward with this process, you can't just do one tenant, you can't just look at one thing. You have to accept and work on all tenants and remove all tenants in order to have a culture of belonging and a culture of anti-racism. So yes, Jess, and I'm here, I'm not an expert, I'm here to just introduce this.
What caveat did you go through where you learned this and received that the sheet?
Yeah, I did. What is the name of it? I actually did one specific for environmental work. It was I have to look up who it was through, but it was actually a 3-day training in Portland, and we did it with Portland and Washington environmental nonprofits. One of them was a challenging white supremacy workshop. And then another one was, I'd have to look up who the group was. But I can look that up and send it in the chat too. Yes, Lynn.
Get this marked off here. Thanks, Megan. I'll start with one. I love the comment about assumptions, because I think we make assumptions more than we actually, we make assumptions more often than we are cognitive of. You meet somebody, you see their appearance, you make an assumption. You think because of the way they're dressed, the way they speak, the color of their skin, whatever, that you make an assumption the moment you meet them. And for me, one of the things when I started teaching it in the university system in Utah, the region system in Utah, the diversity of student population and the idea that Mormon or not Mormon, number one, but also the various nationalities in the university system that come from around the world to be there. I love the idea that if we could each become a little more aware of, are we making an assumption about the topic, about the industry, about the person, I think that would change a lot. I think it would open us up to more. And I'm guilty of it every once in a while. I catch myself going, oh, wait, there's an assumption here. The other one is, do you see a comparison to the gender bias of male over all other
Yeah, just speaking for myself, yeah, misogyny is definitely part of the white supremacist culture. It's challenging for me. I'm the only woman on the county council, so 1 of 5. And whenever I hear the word actually, I could have spent 15 minutes just talking about never use the word actually to me. Like, it's actually a good idea. No, it is a good idea because I made it. But no, the first week I started as a county council member, I had 4 different men explain the 3 branches of government to me in that same week. And I was like, I know what the 3 branches of government are. Like, I am one. So just not to get snarky, but yes, absolutely. I definitely feel like it's a culture. It's part of the power structure, and the power structure is working exactly how it's intended, and that's why every single law in this country was written, debated, and enforced and decided by primarily white men. So good or bad, right? Like, that's why we have to include different cultures and voices so that we're hearing different ideas, new ideas, and move away from the idea that there was only one right idea, one right way. Tim.
I just wanted to affirm what you said earlier about the needing to let go of being right or being comfortable. I found for me, just the way that my brain seems to work, I want to say the right thing. I don't want to hurt any feelings, and it's been really important for me to dive in and participate even when I make mistakes and then apologize for those mistakes. So you mentioned that earlier, and that really stuck with me because I know for me it's been it's sort of a brain thing, right? I want to win at equity, and that's not really how it works. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's too real. Oh, that hurt me. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate your language too, Tim. I think it's important that we're reaffirming, that we're uplifting, we're supporting, and we all make mistakes. So always good to learn. Yeah, well, I appreciate being invited to do this. I know this was like a super heavy topic, and I'm just barely touching the surface, and I'm not the expert, and it's coming from my perspective and my background. So thank you all for listening.
Megan, thank you. And perhaps you could drop that chart in the chat so people could have access to it and maybe read a little bit more.
Yes, I put the link to the PDF and the websites on there.
Oh,
and I also
yeah,
shared.
I just saw it.
Perfect. Our community agreements.
Yeah. I mean, I think that reading this issue on one subject, we can always find correlations to other subjects related to the issue. So thank you for sharing that. All right, let's take a 5-minute break and come back at, let me see here, 12:59. So 4 after 1, get up, stretch, please. It's important. We'll see you in 5.
Lynn?
Oh, yes.
It's, I just wanted to, maybe when we come back, you could see who would like to do the equity moment for the next meeting. It'd be nice to set that today.
Understood. Just turn on your camera for a moment or two so we can see that everybody's back. Yay! I love your enthusiasm, Jason.
I've been told on virtual meetings that people appreciate the mute button too, so enthusiasm, sometimes disruptive.
Yeah.
The equity moment is also just a be a good human being moment too, so I really appreciate it.
I like that too. Yes, I agree. All right, Tim, are you back? Whit? Elizabeth? Yay. Okay, well, let's keep on track and keep going. As Elizabeth mentioned, we would like to see if there's anyone interested in doing an equity moment for our next meeting, which will be, hang on one second, I wrote them all down. Thought I did.
I think it's April 6th.
I do. Yes, April 6th, Monday. Is there anyone that has a topic that they would like to present in our April meeting related to the subject of equity?
Or you don't need to know the topic right now. You just need to be willing to volunteer and then figure it out before then.
Yeah, well, yes, that's true too. Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, as Ben alluded to there, equity is not just human equity, it's equity. We can speak to equity in green spaces. We could talk about equity in communication. We could talk about, I mean, it's a diverse topic, so it's just that a broad heading of equity of any kind. So, anyone? Hands up? Adam, would you be interested?
Yeah, I can jump in on that.
All right. Then I would love that. We'll put you on the agenda for April 6th. It's a Monday, and we'll have you do the equity moment. Thank you so much for stepping up to that. All right. Next, we have our U.S. Forest Service update. Stephen, if you're available.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Hi, everybody. Couple updates from the Forest Service. Good news, there is a budget now for 2026. It was passed both houses last month with broad bipartisan support. It was signed last week, and so we have full funding for the remainder of the fiscal year, and feeling very hopeful and encouraged about that. The Forest Service has like three main branches. There's the National Forest System, there's state private tribal forestry, which includes urban and community forestry, and then there's research and development. Across the board, the budget for the Forest Service is flat, but with all that we've been through the past year, a flat budget with pretty much full funding across the board is welcome news. So we're feeling encouraged about that. The state private tribal forestry branch, which includes urban and community forestry, full funding for all programs, which is especially good news considering the initial White House budget called for zeroing out these programs. So really good to see Congress assert its desire to continue funding these programs on a bipartisan basis. So I don't have the votes in front of me, but in both the House and the Senate, there was broad support across the political spectrum for these programs to continue. So just feeling really good about that. Same for research. Flat funding, but funded. Very hopeful. Urban and community forestry is getting $37 million nationally, which is pretty similar to what we saw 2 years ago, which should allow the Forest Service to make regular, normal, typical allocations to the state forestry agencies, urban and community forestry programs. So one thing that was really unique about this was that if you kind of dive into the legislation, Congress was very, very specific and directive about how much funding each individual program should get. In the past, we haven't seen Congress, be that granular in detail, and they really wanted to be, crystal clear on, their expectation for how much individual programs should be funded at. So, so that is now kind of going through the process of coming down through Treasury, and it goes to the Office of Management and Budget, and then to the individual agencies, and then it'll get kind of apportioned out to the regions and the states. And so that'll take a little time. Next up in the process, the funding goes to, this gets super wonky, but it's just a reality of kind of the past, the times we find ourselves in. It goes to the Office of Management and Budget, which kind of does the official apportionment of allocating and apportioning funds to agencies. And we're kind of closely following what happens there to make sure that the full funding amounts come down as Congress specified. And so we're waiting for just the details and the guidance to come down from that process, and hope to know more in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully have kind of the funding in the regions and the specific allocations for states and programs in the next month or two. Hopefully, by the spring we'll have that and be able to start updating grants and funding agreements and getting that out to the states. Internally at the agency, there's a large reorganization looming for the Department of Agriculture and then the Forest Service and all the agencies in the department. Waiting on specific guidance around that. The initial reorganization announcement called for eliminating all Forest Service regional offices and reassigning national and regional staff to 5 new hubs that will be created across the country. The closest ones to us out west will be Salt Lake City and Fort Collins, Colorado. And so a lot of questions around what this might mean for, basically any program that is not on a national forest. And so that's, state, private, tribal forestry staff, that's research, that's staff at, the national office and regional offices. A lot of questions, not many answers at this point, but we're expecting to hear next steps in that process in the next few weeks, probably this month, so soon. At this point, I'd say we're feeling relief and hope about the future stability of programs, and just question marks around kind of internal organization and staffing behind those. So a lot to continue to play out there that we're paying close attention to. Programmatically for the urban and community forestry program, not a whole lot new to share, but I did want to share. You may have heard this. It's exciting news. The National NUFAC, the National Urban Forestry Advisory Council, which is a national advisory committee that advises the Forest Service on program priorities and goals, and kind of sets 10-year action plans that guide the program at the national level. That organization has a new charter and is recruiting new members. And that's significant because a couple of years ago, the committee was paused and we were not allowed to recruit new members, and it effectively kind of stalled out. It was resumed recently, and the fact that we were able to get approval to renew the charter and recruit new members suggests that there's long-term support for the program, and that organization and the program will continue doing what it's doing, and help kind of chart a path for the next 10 years and beyond. So feeling hopeful about that as well. And I will drop the info in the chat just so you all have it if any of you are interested, or if you know someone who might be a good member for the National Urban Forestry Advisory Council. I encourage you to check that out, and please share with anyone you think might be interested or be a good candidate. That is all I have, unless there are any questions.
Any questions from the group? Some good news, thank you, especially related to budgets. I'm sure Ben's feeling a bit of relief about that, and the staff. Also some kind of a little concern in some of the reorganization things, but I'm hoping that won't eliminate more local contact with the U.S. Forest Service support staff. So thank you, appreciate that. Questions? Okay, and thank you for putting that in the chat for us. Okay, let's look at the legislative and budget outlook for the state of Washington. Jen, are you here?
I am here. And
Hey.
I have to say, Stephen, it just makes my heart so happy to follow you on screen and some optimism, again, from the federal level. You guys are such critical partners, not just in funding. So the
Yeah.
staffing really matters, and that's a lot of fun to follow.
Yeah. Jen, well, the floor is yours.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and open up just kind of as a bit of a baseline reminder since we last met of how we were coming into this session and budgets from the state level, and then also open for Andy, who's been tracking some of the legislative session with me. So just as a reminder, we were coming into this legislative session that we had been funded for this biennium at the state level with state dollars to support our current staff and operations in urban forestry. I want to start there because that's no small thing. If you guys remember historically, this was a two-person program that often had a lot of volatility in funding and heavily depended on the funding coming from Stephen, not just the state. And so the state honored its commitment that we grew this program, other than the positions that we support solely with Stephen's funding from USDA. They honored keeping that going at the increased size that we're at. And I just say that because in these tight budget times, there was a lot of places we were asked to take reductions, and the fact that urban forestry wasn't one of them, to me, really says we built that baseline understanding in the state for how important this issue is to communities statewide. While they funded that operations, the place they did not fund us that all of us were aware of was we wanted funding to continue offering pass-through financial grants directly to communities. That was $3 million we were asking for. We were saying that fit really well with the Climate Commitment Act. That's where they'd funded that in the past. That was not included in the governor's budget. And so far, we've known heading into session, it was always going to be a steep uphill climb to get any new funding on the radar. And we have heard no progress or interest in having that so far in a budget. But later this month, we will see the initial budgets coming from the Senate and the House, and we'll be able to see, do we see anybody bringing forward new resources, and can take that analysis. But right now I want to let you know we are not tracking anybody bringing those grant funds in. We knew that was a long shot. It was not in the governor's budget, but we remain here letting people know that was our ask and the importance of that program. The other way we're looking at things is some of the legislation that is moving that could have a financial impact. So I just wanted to track for you guys during session. While we did have a budget ask, that never means the session isn't talking a lot and other politicians about things that affect urban forestry. Some of you may be better versed on this than me, but I wanted to flag two that were kind of on our mind. One, there is Senate Bill 6279. I believe you guys have talked about this in the past. This is implementing the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. It's an interesting one. I just wanted to make sure you knew came back up this session. It's had activity where it did have a public hearing. It did go into executive session, but just didn't quite make it through the agenda yesterday. We're tracking that closely. Clearly, that's a big deal for a lot of people where it affects the building code and what's happening. So if you have a greater interest, Andy Tate here from our team is analyzing it from that urban and community forestry perspective, as well as some of our other impacted programs. And then as an agency, our Wildland Fire Management Division has taken the real lead on that. They're doing a lot of the lead on the hazard mapping, similar legislation that had passed in the past that's highly relevant to this. And so please, if you have any questions, let us know. The second one that's back, that's everybody's favorite, it comes up so far a few sessions. Anything on that, I believe we did just see a substitute come through. So it does still have a lot of activity. I see nodding heads, so some of you may be tracking it even closer. That is one that so far, and Andy, you can correct me and jump in where you needed. We have flagged, if that passes, it does have fiscal impacts to our team. And so I want to let folks know any bills that are having increased fiscal impacts, they've got a tougher road ahead in the legislature just because of the budget situation we're in. And so that's one, in addition to just hearing how we're sitting with the bill, the work we've been doing on it. That fiscal impact's probably one you'd want to track closely if it's one you're interested in, and we're happy to provide details on what we're seeing. Other than that, I just wanted to share with folks when we get out of session and do a debrief, the kinds of things we're going to be paying attention to that, one, did urban forestry have any direct legislation that passed, direct budget bills that passed? We'll certainly be coming back to you on. The second one is I just want to flag a lot of the folks you depend on in your state family, the programs that impact cities, whether it's Department of Fish and Wildlife, Commerce, ourselves. Everybody's going to be seeing some impacts likely. So far we saw in the governor's budget and others where they might be coming and asking for reductions in administrative services. Things that don't seem exciting, they're tucked off and down inside those budget bills, but they do impact us when we get into that fun wonky stuff that Stephen mentioned. Those are the services that are how we pass through dollars. They do impact all the ways that the agency is able to work with communities and get the work done. So while it might not be exciting, I'd love to come back after session and not only do a review with you on some of the real direct impact policy things that move any direct urban forestry budgets, but give you a little flavor of some of the indirect we're seeing that kind of might impact our ways of business and just how we're showing up together. Those are just a few of the things I wanted to highlight for you guys. And then for us from a budget standpoint, just getting a chance to build off of Stephen's wonky open door. We did at DNR just adopt our budget and spending plan that we're living in. We had a bit of a delay this year. We've got a new commissioner who had to see it and a lot of budgetary impacts that came at us. We've clearly been operating already this fiscal year and doing our work. But what you're going to see for some of our staff, especially UCF, is what that allows them to do is have a much greater understanding and control of some of the contracts we tend to get out the door. We see that when we're talking about our UFIA work and other things that just we do in our day-to-day with you. We're starting to feel that freedom now that spending plans are really locked in. And our second chance to amend those will just be what comes out of legislative session. As I end that monologue, Andy, would you want to add anything on those pieces of legislation, just because you've been tracking them in detail a little closer? And then if there's any questions, I did see some nodding heads, so others might add even more than I had.
I don't have a lot. The urban interface bill hasn't changed much from last session. The 2267 one, it's the latest version of the tree bank bill that you might be most familiar with. That's been around, I think Representative Doris said she's done it 5 sessions now. I don't have memory that good, but it's been around quite a while and it just keeps evolving a little bit. And in this latest version of it, it puts the burden on Commerce to develop a model ordinance and guidance. A substitute dropped Friday, I think it was, during one of the sessions they had, and it removed the grant program to help communities implement these. It removed the requirement for Commerce to provide technical assistance and planning support or something like that. I don't remember the exact language. It removed the addition of some of these from the greenhouse gas section of the comprehensive plan update requirements. So it's just kind of tweaking it to get in alignment with some of the various interest groups that testified either for or against it and had some concerns. So I suspect it'll be similar to what we've seen in the past, where it's got just enough of a cost associated with it and it's just contentious enough that it won't rise to the top again, but we could be surprised. And I'd be interested to hear if anybody else has opinions on it or thoughts or experience. Mike, you've probably been exposed to it.
Yeah, there was a group of us that actually had an opportunity to meet with Representative Dewar a couple iterations for this bill as she was preparing it, and as it was initially introduced, the language is actually really supportive. I don't know how many folks were tracking this the last couple times it came up, but they were specifically tying communities' hands in terms of having tree preservation within the ordinance. So if you were going to be eligible for the financial assistance or technical assistance, you had to adopt the regulations pretty substantially. And they had put in there that you essentially couldn't have tree protections in your regulations in order to be eligible for those services. So we kind of showed up in Tacoma as opposed to last several iterations for that reason, because it would remove communities' ability to regulate tree preservation the way that they saw fit. When this was introduced again, that was again kind of initially proposed, and we were able to have some conversations and iterations around that to remove that language, so it would provide for the ability for communities to have their own tree preservation regulations that they see fit. So the initial bill was really aligned with that value, but in the most recent substitute, I will say there were some feedback provided by the master builders as well as others, and they incorporated this new language in there that talks about no housing density loss. And so I do just want to flag that for folks who are interested in tracking the bill and what that would mean, but essentially you could have tree preservations on the books, however, it cannot impact housing density potential through development, which there's a nuance there that hopefully isn't lost on many. But if folks want to talk in more great detail, I'm happy to have conversations at any point in time. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart here in Tacoma. And we've been working really hard to make effective regulations that align with our community's values. And so we don't want to see that hindered by, just kind of the opportunity to throw in there the tag of no density loss. And so, again, happy to chat with anybody else offline. Please reach out.
Thanks. Thank you, Mike. Jen, Andy, any other information you want to share? Jennifer, we will definitely have you back at the end of the session.
You can't get rid of me. I'll be here anyways, but I don't always need to talk. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. All right, moving on then. We have program storytelling. Ben, would you like to take the floor?
Sure.
And it's nice to have you feeling better.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, me too. No one feels it better than I do. Anyway, so we've had this historic opportunity in 2024 with significant funding from the state and from the federal government to invest in urban forestry projects. We did that through a combination of competitive grant awards and direct investments, as well as a special project or two here and there. So, for as long as I have been in this profession, there has been sort of a rallying cry around storytelling, and it's kind of so common that it's just like a industry shorthand for like we've got to do better, right? We've got to do a better job telling the story. We've got to do a better job, for lack of a better word, convincing people that this work is important, that this work matters, right? So, and I would say that like while I don't disagree, like just about anyone who works in government, in the urban forestry sphere, even if you're tangentially related, like a stormwater engineer, like it's nobody's job to do that work. Nobody gets hired to be a storyteller. No one gets hired to do communications unless you were doing communications for all kinds of things that may include urban forestry, right? But then it means it's not your sole focus, right? And it means that you are communicating as a generalist. Will Rubin is wonderful. He's on the call today. He made a comment in the chat, but Will and I have a good relationship, so I know he's yeah, Will is, I will say, I mean, he knows this already, but he's always looking out for our program, and he and I have had conversations in the last 2 weeks about, hey, like, what can we do differently? Where can we lean in? But all that to say is that, it isn't Jason's job or Dan's job or Mike's job to go out there and be on the forefront of being a media personality, being an author, right? It's like these folks are hired for their technical expertise, first and foremost, and for their sort of like technical and administrative capacity, right? More so than they're hired for their chops with social media or telling a good story. So for us in the program, it's like, in a way, that's an opportunity, right? Because while we are required to have technical skills, we are not specifically implementing technical work the way that our partners are. So it's like, given all of that, and the fact that we have this opportunity to invest in these really high dollar, high value projects, it's like, well, what if we tried to lean into this more? What if we tried to make this a bigger part of our collective responsibility to really tell this story? And so I will say that it hasn't been without challenge, because it still isn't specifically like in there as like being in someone's position description to do this work. So we've kind of all pulled together on the UCF team to try to figure out how to do this better. And I want to give a shout out to Elizabeth on the call here, and thank you, Elizabeth, for taking notes today as well. It's very appreciated. Elizabeth put together kind of a framework in collaboration with the rest of our team so that we can go out to these grant-funded partners and say, hey, we're interested in learning more about this project, because even if we fund a project and they submit their grant reports a lot of it is, some folks lean in and they start to tell a good story in their grant reports and they add that color to it, but they're not really required to do that. Their grant report can just be like, this is what happened, this is how we did, fact, and then that's the end of it. And so the facts by themselves are the anchors of the story, but they don't actually tell the story. They don't add the sort of like the nuance and texture and color that makes it engaging and makes it compelling. Like they know it's compelling, like they wouldn't have applied for the grant if they didn't think that it had this deeper meaning besides, well, we're just gonna put some trees in the ground, or we're just gonna collect some data, or we're just gonna write a report, right? So it's like the framework that Elizabeth helped us put together was more like, how do we go out there and how do we fill in those gaps with folks and find that out? So our urban forestry technicians, Mike Sanborn in Spokane, Celesta Kalachi in Southwestern Washington, and Heidi Asplund in Northwestern Washington, as well as others on our team, kind of embraced this process, and we leaned in. And it is time consuming because we're going to spend a little bit of time on individual grant projects to try to tease that stuff out. So I wanted to offer, let me grab the links from our TreeLink newsletter. I'm going to put these in the chat, and then I'm just going to kind of orient you to them. So these should all be hyperlinked. If there's a problem getting them, they're not really spaced apart. Let me see if I can make. Oh, never mind. Okay, well, I'll have to adjust the formatting to make it cleaner, but the ones on the top, the Whale Scout project and the Milwaukee Mini Forest in Bellingham, those are two stories that specifically came out of this new framework. Those are 2024 grant-funded projects. And I would say the tree planting project in Minnehaha in Clark County, that's a link to the video that organization produced about their project that is also compelling. The Milwaukee Mini Forest also did a video, and I believe that is linked in the article. We do have another article coming out in this February edition that talks about another Clark County project that was done by the Clark Conservation District called Seeds to Salmon, where they're building curriculum for elementary school kids and taking those kids out to various restoration sites and teaching them about the hands-on element of the curriculum that they're building with other partners. And then below the Clark County link, you'll see a link to a project in Tacoma, in Parkland. It's the Tacoma Tree Foundations project. A project we funded in Spokane and a project we funded in Walla Walla. Like those are older projects. And so looking at them here, they still do tell a story. But I think you might see a difference between the Bellingham project and the Whale Scout project in the way that we've told that story that makes that a little different than some of the older stories that we've told in our TreeLink newsletter. The other thing that I wanted to point out as part of this kind of, initiative, push, whatever you would like to call it, is an update to our grants map. So this is on our website. It's got all the projects that we funded from 2008 to 2025. We've been funding grants since before 2008. 2008 is a semi-arbitrary start date, but you can just say it goes back to when we're really having good digital records on stuff. So we do foresee additional changes to the online grants map. We've already kind of identified ways that it could be made more user-friendly. It may evolve at some point or may turn into a story map, or perhaps we could create a story map that runs in parallel to this online version of the map. I think that using the ArcGIS online platform for it still just requires a little bit of exploration by the user to figure out how to change the view, zoom in and zoom out, and kind of play with some of the buttons, if you will, to make it to sort of tease out the information that a particular user might be looking for. Of course, the nice thing about a story map is that you can kind of embed narrative story with facts about how much money was awarded in what location and all that stuff. And I, we do have a, excuse me, there's also a legislative one-page document that was put together. We had designs of doing another one. We didn't quite get that far, at least not yet. It's still on the table. If we could finish it before the legislative session, we would like to. But, again, as this kind of work isn't really anyone's job to do, we're struggling to keep up with the regular work items and do the storytelling work at the same time. I'll try to pull up the legislative one-pager if I can talk and click at the same time, which is always a challenge, but anyway, it's basically like this is the product of us trying to do a better job of highlighting the good work of our community partners. The stories that we are highlighting in the Tree Link are sort of like carefully selected and curated to the extent that we're providing that texture and context so that the average non-UCF technical expert can sort of see the benefits of it. And so we're hopeful that, with a little bit more practice and a little bit more experimentation, we can kind of weave this in a little bit more to the way that we deliver services and try to make this more of our regular operating process. But it's a work in progress. I feel like we're off to a fantastic start. The team has really rallied together and pulled together on this, recognizing that it does feel like a stretch. It does feel above and beyond, but all the more reason to I think, feel really good about it. So I'm going to stop there and see if anyone has any questions. Michael?
Hi, friends. So this is basically a good old boys club, this council. You are emboldened, or you're required to do the work that your boss asks you to do. There is a huge amount of citizen outcry over the new density regulation. And the gentleman from Tacoma, Mike Carey, just mentioned that, yes, it's pretty significant in his community. But because you're public employees, you're not allowed to squawk very loudly at all, otherwise you'll be fired. So about 12 years ago or more, there was the Evergreen Communities Act. There was a special advisory council formed just for implementation of that act. And at that time, there was a call to implement a new position on the Urban Forestry Council to represent the advocacy community. So now a dozen years have gone by and you haven't done it. So all of those organizations that that were just posted there by Ben, the salmon groups, the orca groups, the density groups, none of them are allowed to be at this meeting. And even myself, I'm basically out of order. I'm just a citizen. I came here to observe. I should let your chair know that I did ask a question in the chat for the Forest Service representative, like how many people have been fired by the Forest Service. So this really is a kind of a bureaucratic organization, in my view. So thanks all for listening to my comments. I should just let you know that I'm a social media person, and this storytelling should really have its home. You should have some type of a advocacy mechanism online, like a Facebook group or an Instagram page, to get that going. So thanks a lot, and we'll stop now, let you guys pile on.
Sure, Mike. I don't know if pile on is the right is the right word for that. First of all, I don't necessarily think that you're out of line for coming to a public meeting and speaking your piece. I think that's your right, as is the right of any Washington resident that wants to come to one of our meetings. And I would say that if we went back to the time frame in which the original Evergreen Communities Act Steering Committee was created, they were absolutely correct that there needed to be more opportunity for community advocates on the Community Forestry Council. And so recognizing that, this group, going back a few years now, made some sweeping changes to the Articles of Association so that we weren't going back to the same organizations over and over and over again. We expanded the list of eligible appointees and the kind of interest groups that we could appoint from to include things like environmental justice, to include tribal representation, and a few others in there. And I just don't have the document open in front of me to kind of pick out the things that are new versus the things that have been in there before. And so it's an opportunity, or it's provided an opportunity for the council to be more thoughtful about its appointees and not just continue to appoint from a fairly narrow sector of the urban forestry community of practice, broadly speaking. So, do we have work to do? Yes, we do. Have we made progress? Yes, we have. So I just wanted to make sure that you had that context, Mike, so that in whatever context you want to share your experience from today's call, that you've got that information. And we could also find a link to the, thanks for putting up the one-pager, Elizabeth. We could also grab the link to the Articles of Association as well, so you can get a sense of that.
And Mike, this is Lynn. I noticed you still have your hand up. Do you have more additional comment?
No, sorry.
Oh, okay. Just checking. I saw the hand.
But perhaps we can make sure that Mike's other question is addressed from the chat. He had a question for Stephen. Stephen, if you're still here, about how many staff may have been late. What's the question specifically?
I've got it. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I'm sorry. I didn't see that after I dropped in my comment, and I don't have the specific numbers, but about 5,000 employees left the Forest Service last year. Most of those were retirements or voluntary resignation through like the called deferred resignation program. Not many actual eliminations, but a lot of folks left voluntarily through early retirement and then early resignation. So yeah, a lot of we're definitely down a lot of folks.
Okay. Ben, do you have any additional?
No, that's what I had to share with the group here today. So, so yeah, again, like, it's a work in progress, more to come. We'll continue to share that information with folks.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. In the 1990s and in the very early 2000s, we used to call those elevator messages in the School of Business. Now they're called storytelling and storyboards. So same thing, new words, but I like it. I think they're very helpful. We need to get that word out. All right, we have on the schedule a 15-minute break. So really get up and stretch, have something to eat or drink. And let's see, it is, right on time, 1:40. Well, we're a little early, 1:45. So see you at 2 o'clock. Turn on your cameras when you come back so we know you're here. The next item is the our meeting dates for 2026, and I believe everybody has received those, and Ben sent out the holes. Thank you, Ben, for doing that. I love that the month is listed in the subject line, and that makes it easy for me to go back and find. So the poll was completed, and the dates were determined to be April 6th, which is a Monday, Wednesday, June 3rd, Tuesday, September 1, and Monday, November 9th. All basically, except for November, within the first week of the calendar, of the monthly calendar. So I guess, do we need to discuss these dates? Is there any major impactful heartburn out there, or is it just Are we okay with these dates? They were the majority of the dates where staff and council members could attend. Ben?
Lynn, I would say respectfully, like the ship has sailed for comment on these dates. We put in a lot of work to get these dates.
Oh, yes.
So I'd like to keep them.
No, I agree.
But I do think though there's an opportunity to just pose the question to the council, and I don't know if this is jumping ahead of you, Lynn. I'll just say this and give it back to you, but how we want to handle meeting dates moving forward. There's an argument on both sides where it's good to be sort of as inclusive and as accommodating as possible. There's also a case to be made for, we're going to be consistent within these boundaries about when meetings will get held and how they will get held, and when you apply to the council that information is presented so that you have an understanding of whether or not it's a commitment you can satisfy or not. But making a choice on that is also going to potentially put some folks in a bind if the sort of like the more rigid version puts them out of future meetings, right?
Yeah.
Because of their own schedules. So that's the rub, that's the challenge.
That is, and in my tenure on the committee, we had a period where it was a fixed day of the month, day and week of the month. And that was for a period of time. And then we went to kind of differing schedules to get more involvement. And to your point, Ben, there is value in both of those considerations. Some people have calendars and like, consistency, reliability of dates. I sit on two councils that they're one's the third Thursday of every month and one's the second Wednesday. And there is that kind of reliability that you can build your calendar around it, but many people can't build a calendar around because they're not building their own calendar. Someone else is doing that. So yeah, there's all sorts of things. I only raised the question just because I wanted to be able to discuss with the council that if you have a meeting date that is a problem, just let us know. And I believe in a previous discussion last year, we discussed the idea of being able to send a substitute to cover for you if need be. Didn't we discuss that, Ben? Just wasn't that part of the discussion?
I don't actually recall. If you are representative of an organization specifically, there could be value in sending a person in your stead to represent that organization.
And that was my recollection.
That
was
person
about
would
being
not
in
be
a position.
Yeah, but that would not be a voting member of the group.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that was my recollection as well, that there was a brief discussion of that. And the bylaws do allow that a council member may miss a meeting. What we don't want is someone just saying, oh, I just can't do that, and it's every time or every other time, that sort of thing. So that was kind of the context in which I was raising that. Is there any real heartburn that we need to discuss? Not that it would change our calendar, but that we could discuss. So, but hearing none, you have all, I believe, received Ben's hold dates, invites for teams. You should have these on your calendar, and we look forward to a wonderful and productive year. Moving on, we're getting things done. Let's go to the council work plan discussion. A key element of the council is its work plan. And it evolves over time. It's not a fixed permanent document. It's one that evolves as we go through growth and getting things done and accomplished. And Jess, I would really like to call on you to kind of give a history to the council, since we have new members, and of how this has evolved over time, and what what kind of people can expect of our focus on the working with the work plan this year. And I hope you're still here.
Certainly, yes. I didn't go running for the hills yet, Lynn. Certainly. So I'd like to think that this work plan has been handed down from chair to chair to chair since the dawning of the WCFC.
I think that's right.
I think that is right. This is not a formal document. This is not something that's assembled, reviewed, and voted on. This is a working document. And the chair, vice chair, and just DNR in general is, as topics and things come up, they get added to it. So what you may not know is that in the background, we listen. And if topics keep coming up, if issues or concerns from the council, we start documenting them on this work plan. And the way we have it broken down is subcommittees. What are the subcommittees working on? Programs and projects DNR is working on, such as the Evergreen Community Recognition Program, the different supports, program supports DNR wants us, is asking us to be interested in and commenting on, so those kind of get tracked in there. Public engagement and networking, that for the last couple of years has been a big issue. You just heard Ben present on that again today. Elizabeth and her position is something we've been watching and tracking for years as well. So as these come up, we've just been asking during setting up these meetings, can we get more information about that? Can you find someone to present that, or how are you addressing within DNR these issues? Finally, it's kind of towards the end of it, and this is kind of, we've just been kind of calling it hot topics, priorities. But when urban forestry issues or relevant issues kind of come up or come into play, this could be associated with legislation, workforce development, model code for tree ordinances was a recent one. These just go on this list. So as opportunities arise to dive deeper into it, we know it's something that the council is interested in, and then we have it at the ready. So that kind of sums up the work plan. It's intended to be flexible, and it's a living document. It's a living document just to follow and to work on and to help us set the agenda and on what items we should take action on.
Very good. Thank you, Jess. Yeah, and I want to say that it is definitely a working document. But in my mind, it helps us pull back once in a while if we review it to see what we have said we want to work on and focus on, because I think it's very easy in everybody's life to kind of have something you create in the beginning of the year, thinking of a personal life, and mid-year you go, wait, I think I was supposed to do this and I lost track of that. This is a document that can help you keep your focus on the things that we've raised for ourselves that we want to consider, evolve, develop, and maybe even implement. So I was just going to type in the text, but I'll say it instead. You all got in your invite for today's meeting, in the attachments, the work plan. And as you'll note in that, this copy has some notes from Jess, kind of end of term observations and thoughts for coming year. And I will get on the agenda at some point, and I think early on, kind of a discussion of the council on the views, your views of the work plan. Are there things that we're missing that we might want to add, consider, and so that we keep this in the front of our mind and keep us going towards our objectives and goals. But also at this point, I'd like to open it up for any comments, questions that any of you have related to the attachment, if you had the opportunity to review it. Thoughts about what we might want to do this year towards that work plan. And just your input is invited, just because you have a depth of history with this document. Comments, questions, anyone? Did anybody get a chance to read it? That's a question I ask my students always. Did you read the assignment? Yes, Tristan.
I just been thinking about like how to bring this more to our forefront, because I think we talked about it at the beginning of last year and then I just like totally forgot about it, you know? So I'm wondering if we can revisit it a couple of times or just reorient on it a couple of times.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry?
That was just a thought I had.
Oh, no, I thought somebody said something else over that. No, I think that's part of my thinking is, do we kind of pull this out of the drawer once in a while and look at it and say, how are we doing on our work plan? I like that. Other thoughts, questions, comments? Megan.
Hi, so I like how it's prioritized by kind of hot topics. I think when I've done work plans, it might help to plan out your agendas as well. So if you have like each quarter or January, March, or January, April, February, April, and then the next meetings, and then we can know what to expect for the meetings that are coming up and when the topics will be coming. As someone who represents a larger body, that's helpful because at our quarterly board meetings, we give updates back to our body on what we're working on in the different groups like this. So yes. I can tell them in April, we're going to be looking at this, and then I can get feedback in advance. So I think organizing it or just adding a calendar that says, you know, if we're going to be working on grants, then April is when the RFPs go out, and then November when the grants are graded and funded and things like that. So having like a time structure would be helpful around the hot topics.
So kind of a heads up timeline for people who represent organizations, or maybe even for personal reasons, just need some more advanced kind of thinking, but yet allowing the agenda to shift according to some current needs that may be on the agenda as well. Because I think, from my experience, it's a little difficult for the organization to put out an entire agenda in, 2 months in advance, because things, as we've all experienced over the last couple of years, do change. But I like the idea of there are some consistent things, or at least there's kind of a timeline, maybe presented at the bottom of the agenda when it goes out, that these are things coming up. These are things to be aware of, get input on. Does that make sense to your comment?
Yeah, like our first meeting of the year is when elections are held and we decide the dates. So the work plan would be February elections and, year planning, a legislative update, and then knowing what some of these kind of cyclical items that are coming up.
Yeah, and some of those are in our articles that are defined by our articles, those sorts of things. But yeah, I appreciate the thought. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I really like an accountability board and a carrying over on the agenda. It's really helpful to just have that constant reminder. So I'm definitely in favor of that. And I think to Megan's point, having an actual block out of 15-20 minutes where we hold that space permanently at meetings for any of our subcommittees to report out, whether we rotate that through, like, okay, meeting 1 we have 2 report out, meeting 2 we have another 2, so on and so forth, or whether it's just an open forum where if work has been achieved in those subcommittees and report outs are necessary, you kind of ad hoc chime in. But I think dedicating some time would be really nice. And to be honest, I think there's really a lot of value in having some of that action-oriented work in a council meeting more up at the top of an agenda versus kind of buried deep. These are long meetings, and it's nice to get some of that feedback as you're working earlier on in the meeting to keep the energy up.
Right. I like that too. Thank you, Whit. Other thoughts?
As a new member, I'd be curious how hot topics are incorporated into council meetings or kind of discussion. Is that just kind of as presentations pop up? I'm just kind of looking through, there's identified subcommittees, there's programs that are kind of established, like evergreen communities. There's Elizabeth's name next to a couple things under engagement and networking, but I don't see anyone kind of owning any of those individual topics, or just in general kind of making sure, because I'll admit, someone with the kind of more local city perspective, that's where my my thoughts are most attracted to, is some of the topics we have there. And I'm just kind of curious, one, to hear how those have been incorporated in the past, or if there would be a way to, I don't know if creating another subcommittee might be too much, but is there a way for people to kind of take ownership and, on future agendas kind of have ownership to whether that's materials they're putting together themselves, or trying to kind of reach out to folks that might be able to present on these topics to the council? Is that kind of how that's already going? Just love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure, Dan. I can give my perception, and then Ben can certainly fill in, but my perception is that as topics occur, they kind of get filtered to Ben, or in the past, our chairs, or the vice chair, or someone says, hey, can we add this, by just an email to leadership. And I think that that alludes to what I was mentioning about the agenda, because those things do come up in my experience, not regularly, but they do come up. And so the idea of having a current significant topic being in our agenda, I think my perception is that kind of filters through the leadership from anyone and everyone. But there may be a need for a more formal process. But Ben, your experience or thought, and I see Jess back, so you're muted, Ben.
Yeah, yep, got it, thank you.
Okay.
That's okay. So I would say, Dan, a couple things about the work plan. For as long as it's existed on the council, to my knowledge, it's always been kind of a wish list, but then a place where, if there are something that's particularly timely because of other factors that's just really affecting the more folks that are engaged in urban forestry, like that could bubble to the surface. Sometimes it translates into like a presentation from an expert at another agency or another organization that could come and address that for the council, just as kind of a learning exercise. Sometimes it does translate into more action-oriented stuff, but I think that there's just this inherent tension with that because, for one, the council is advisory in nature, and so it's not that you aren't allowed to take action on things that you think are important, but there has to be, first of all, some consensus that the council agrees this is what we're going to move forward on. And then secondly, it usually implies that if there is going to be a more action-oriented component, that the members are stepping up on their own kind of in between meetings to like provide feedback on a document or, draft edits or do something of that nature. And so that isn't necessarily the interest of everyone on the council, because it's not really required to be a council member to operate that way. So it's like I said, it's not to say that we can't do that. It's just that there needs to be some like buy-in from the council broadly. I will also say though that I think that everything that I've heard so far in this conversation is about getting it on the agenda and sort of keeping it top of mind. I think that's totally appropriate. And Lynn, I would just look to you and Whit, to you as council leadership to help me stay accountable when we're drafting those agendas to say, no, this needs to be on here. Like, let's keep that in mind, right? Because it's easy. And then the other thing is like between the program and the council, it's a little bit of a dance, right? It's like the council is here to provide feedback on timely topics, but you don't necessarily have the ear to the ground on what all the timely topics are. Like, you may not be following the legislative session until you come to a meeting and we say, here's what's happening in the legislative session. And then that becomes the thing that you can provide feedback on. So there is that little bit of like, how many things get brought forward by the council, how many things get brought forward by the program, and then there's that interaction and that conversation. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it provides context.
Yeah, no, I think that helps. And Dan, I think one thought that I might have also is more specific to the idea of kind of a hot topic that all of a sudden, and those typically are all of a sudden it's happening, right? And my feeling is that the council members do have the right and the ability to bring topics to the council. As Ben pointed out, we have some responsibilities and some ways that we have to do things, but I think it doesn't hurt to raise topics that are of interest occasionally. I know when Kathy was on the council for 2 terms, she and I had a similar interest in green spaces and the biophilia, the relationship of green and nature to humankind. And so we would bring those topics up as we learned things or saw things, and she was probably better at that than I was because I was kind of new to that interest, but it's still an interest. But she would bring those things up in the council, either ahead of time to put on the agenda or in a discussion that was relevant or related. And in my perception, as a council member, we all have the ability and the right to raise the point. Now, to Ben's point, I think sometimes staff will say, yeah, but, right? Sometimes they'll say, well, thank you for sharing that. We will take that to staff. And sometimes it just sort of dies, right? But sometimes good conversations come out of it that are planting a seed. And so I would not want to say, no, but we don't do that. But because I think it's very important for us to also provide staff, the program, with information that we might hear in the community, that their focus on their sources and what's important for them, like the legislature and budgets, may not be hearing that in the community or bringing it forward. And so it's maybe that's the tension that Ben's speaking of is that we may hear things of concerns in the community that, and maybe our staff already knows that, already has that, they've got that going, but it doesn't hurt to do that. Does that make sense as well? So it's kind of a field that it's being part of a statewide council, in my opinion.
So, very helpful. Thank you both.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts, likes, dislikes, loves, hates? Okay. Well, we will bring up the work plan in the future. Take a look at it, please, if you haven't already. Take a look at Jess's comments. I have some thoughts that we'll discuss, but I appreciate taking the time. Now, there's a scheduled 5-minute break. Do we need one? Okay. Well, then we'll just keep talking. I saw 2 kind of shrugs, and to me that means I'm ambivalent. So, all right. Let's go to program updates, including legislative information from Ben. You're on floor again, Ben.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we may have missed something in the agenda drafting process there, just because Jen kind of covered the legislative stuff, so I won't revisit that.
Okay.
But
I don't know if you might have a different perspective of issues that she raised. So.
No, I mean I think I guess I will say that the wildland urban interface is a real it's a real behemoth of an issue, right? It touches so much, and I sort of have some opinions about like how it could impact urban forestry, but it's like, will it impact urban forestry? How much will it impact urban forestry? It's like it's so big and there's so many moving parts. It is really hard to like zoom in on a single piece of it and say like this is problematic, right? So I think the other thing with the House bill about model ordinances is that I think it's very well intended, and I think that if it were to pass, even in any of its previous versions, it would lead to some work that will really benefit some Washington communities but not necessarily in the way of helping them balance development and housing with tree canopy. So it would do things like usher in like a statewide land cover analysis to identify areas where trees could be planted as offsets. It would also kind of trigger some like the development of like regional tree lists, so that if somebody was going to invest in an offset program, that they would know that they're putting resources into making sure that the right trees are planted in the right types of locations. So there would have to be this like matching of, you know, if for these types of locations in this part of the state, these are the types of trees that would go in there. But I also like I think it's been through the number of revisions it's been through, just because there's, you know, I guess like, I think it seeks a solution that is simpler than the issue itself, I guess, is probably like the right way to say it. Mike, you had your hand up about that?
Yes, I am just being conscious of, I could talk all day about this particular one, so I'll truncate my comments for this group. It's just to add, you're absolutely right, Ben. It is taking in this behemoth of an issue, and it's the bill as it's proposed is trying to, I guess, create some ubiquitous statements or some intent that would apply statewide to this constant issue of housing or trees, this false dichotomy that's been set up. And I think there'd be a lot of good guidance that would be produced through this if this were to pass. I just did want to call out, though, specifically a lot of the technical assistance stuff that was in the original bill has been removed through the substitute bill. So a lot of things like you're referring to might not actually be produced with it in its current state. What it would be good in that it proposes mitigation sequencing, for instance, as an evaluation tool when looking at tree preservation in relation to housing development, which is a great concept to add. I think that there's depending on how the work gets produced, which is actually the production of this ordinance or this sample bill, that's like the devil's in the details, right? And so it's all about the execution.
Yeah.
I will just flag for caution again that there's a lot of interest in the development community, pros and cons, right? I don't want to like throw everybody in a bucket, but I will say that some of the substitutions to specifically tie not having tree protections in place if it results in any housing loss is somewhat, I don't want to say it's problematic because people might have different perspectives on that, but it is something to be conscious of. Because those things were not coupled prior to this amendment. So I'll just stop there.
I think that makes sense, Mike. I mean, from the development community, and I'm familiar with several here on the eastern side, that that is, and they're not all fixed on one issue, but you know, bringing in the idea of green space in housing developments for human physical and psychological well-being. You know, they kind of go, well, what does that have to do with my bottom line? Right? Because they don't see it. Yeah, I appreciate your comments. I do.
Yeah, I don't want to take up a whole lot of space in this forum, but maybe a conversation after the facts. I just want to flag that there are many reasons why you might not be able to get the total with the maximum amount of allowable units when you develop. And trees are often not the cause of you not getting your full potential maximum allowed units. And to put in legislation to say that if you can demonstrate that you can't get all of your units met, you don't have to save any trees. That's not often the issue that you're facing with not getting the maximum allowable units. So it's kind of this default statement of saying you never really have to protect trees because you're always going to find a reason to not get your maximum allowable units. And so it does deflate a lot of the intent, I think. But all right, I said I wasn't going to go there, but here we are. Moving on. I'll stop there.
It's all good, Mike. Any other comments for Ben? Ben, do you have additional information you want to share?
Nope. I think between Mike and I, we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
So I will also, so I'm going to start with a couple things that are sort of like fairly straightforward or simple. One is that, you know, we are now coming into, we are in preparation for our third year of UFIA, Urban Forest Inventory and Analysis Project data collection. So Daria Goshla with our team is working with the Forest Service, who is our partner in the implementation of that project, to spec out all the plot locations for the coming year, and then figuring out which of those plot locations are going to be done by our contractor, which locations will be done by our in-house staff. And you know, as a kind of a funny twist of fate, given everything that's happened at the federal level, our partners at the Forest Service actually have a little bit more staff capacity to assist us this year with plot data collection than they did in the past. It's in the first 2 years of data collection, we were doing them a few favors to help them get their plots collected, and now they're going to be able to return that favor a little bit and help us with our plots, more so than we're helping them with theirs. So that's nice to see. So moving on from UFIA, we are a little bit behind on the review and evaluation of our Tree City USA applications for a couple reasons. One is that our Evergreen Communities Coordinator, Julia Cast, had a baby last year, and she has been on a limited schedule. She was out for quite a while. She was out when the application portal opened, and she's back on a more limited basis now. So it's taken her a little bit longer to move through those applications. And the second reason is that we have communities that were severely impacted by the flooding in December, where completing a Tree City application wasn't the most important thing that they needed to attend to. So we've given them a little bit more grace and worked with the Arbor Day Foundation to make sure that we can keep those cities engaged while they clean up after the mess and then get their applications in. So we're going to be about on par where we have been historically over the last several years with Tree City USA. Again, with that program, every year we have a few cities drop out. We have a few cities come in. Some cities drop out and come back, and drop out and come back, or they're in for 3 years and then they're out for 2 years, and then they're back for a year and then they're out for a year, right? So it's like there is a sort of a ebb and flow within the number of cities that we have, but we're going to have about the same number of cities, which is about, I think it's like 95 or 96, and that's been pretty consistent in that total number over at least since 2020. So still continuing to make progress on the Evergreen Communities Recognition Program and getting cities involved and engaged in that. So I guess I'll just stop there for a brief moment and say, does anyone have any questions about Tree City, Evergreen Communities, or UFIA?
I'm just being nosy. Have we had any county communities sign up for?
Good question. I know that we have had some inquiries, but I don't know if we have any counties that are like formally enrolled and approved. So,
my understanding is just because I'm with a county entity,
yeah.
You can't do the whole county, but you can do communities within counties, if I recall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of that's still up for discussion. Unless Elizabeth, unless you know if we made a ruling that is not top of mind. But I think it's a little, I think we want to see the entity as a whole get designated. But so let me back up from that before I say something that isn't actually correct or something. We knew that when we created the Evergreen Recognition Program that we wanted to create a pathway for counties and for tribes to get involved, because those entities were not they're not allowed to be in the Tree City USA program. Mm-hmm. So we formed a steering committee that had tribal representation and county representation, and then launched the program. And then of course, even with members of those organizations on the steering committee, the way that we interpret our own rules about how the program works doesn't necessarily make sense for tribes and for counties. And so we have to figure out sort of like what is a reasonable reinterpretation of the rules for those entities so that A, they can participate, and B, they aren't held to a wildly different standard than the cities themselves, right? And so where is there room, where is there room for wiggle, and how much wiggle is appropriate? So I don't know that we have fully come to the end of those conversations yet. We're kind of doing it on a case-by-case basis as tribes and city and counties are coming forward. And I know that we have at least one tribe and at least one county that has expressed interest to date on those. So.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So another thing is that, you know, we had our 2024 grant program where we selected applicants for funding. We had a lot of agreements to create, and by the time we got to the end of the year in 2024, we had still not executed all of our agreements. It's a very time-consuming process. And then in January 2025, the federal government instituted their funding freeze on all funded, like IRA and Inflation Reduction Act funded projects. DNR made an executive decision to hold open the agreements that we had already executed, but then to pause the execution of any other agreements until such time as that funding freeze was lifted. There was really no formal institution of the funding freeze, and then therefore there was no informal lifting of the funding freeze, and we just kind of had to rely on the best available information to know basically like when it was safe to come out and when it was safe to start like executing those agreements again. So we started that process, I think in July or so of 2025 of re-executing those agreements, and we are almost at the end of the process. We have a few, I don't know, maybe let's say 8. I don't think that's the absolute correct number, but most of the agreements that we had identified from 2024 have been executed. And it's just a few others that we're trying to button up and close the loop on. But those projects are projects that will run through the fall of 2028, right? So there's time for these partners to implement their work. And there have been some cases where, having lost a significant amount of time, people made modifications to their scope of work that were within scope of their original proposal, but made it reasonable for them to complete their projects by the deadline. So, so that's kind of what's going on with those grant agreements. There was, in addition to the Inflation Reduction Act funding, there was another bill that passed Congress the same year that was first called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, was later referred to as the Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act, IIJA. And so while we were prioritizing the spending of state funds and federal IRA funds, those funds kind of simmered on the back burner. As they are funds for infrastructure, that means that we are using it for tree planting. That is like the implementation of new infrastructure that we're building, basically, or planting in our case. So we have started with outreach to Washington tribal communities to prioritize them first for investments with this IIJA funding in tree planting projects. So we held a webinar for that a couple weeks ago, a little over a week ago, I should say. And then I owe those tribal partners some additional documents that will help them submit suggestions or ideas for how to spend those dollars. So we have made the dollars available to federally recognized tribes. We have a number of tribes in Washington that are not federally recognized. So if you do know anyone from a federally recognized tribe, they should be aware already that there is funding available for some tree planting work. But if you're welcome to reach out to me if you have questions about that, or if you know any tribal partners and you want more information about what they had already received, like I'm happy to forward that to you. So that's kind of our approach with that. We haven't historically done a lot of work with tribes, especially not in a direct outreach type way. We've mostly just had them apply for community forestry grants as they became available. And so if a tribe applied and if they were selected for funding, then we worked with them. But this is a more intentional effort to try to engage our tribal partners. If we don't spend the funding that we have in the IIJA bucket, then we may pivot to communities according to our program prioritization to see if there's interest there. And these are all direct investments. We're executing them non-competitively. And we have roughly $300,000. We're breaking it into projects between $5,000 and $30,000. I will also say that even though we need to it's like there's a multi-step process. Like first, we're starting with tribes. If we don't find ways to obligate all those funds through tribal investments, we'll pivot to communities according to our program prioritization. We need to tease out that list again. But then also, more than likely, we would subtract any communities that have already received funding through the 2024 grant cycle in the name of just fairness, spreading those dollars around. And certainly these are, between $5,000 and $30,000 is a lot smaller of a project than the 50 to 350 that we were offering in our grants in 2024. Any questions about grants or funding? Okay, I have one more item, which is some of you that have been on the council for a while may be aware of the Forest Action Plan. So the Forest Action Plan, it is there are several criteria that states have to meet in order to receive federal funding from the Forest Service through Region 6 where Stephen works. And one of those is that we have to have a Forest Action Plan that, in its own way kind of guides the expenditure of funds. I mean, there are a number of ways that we document for the Forest Service that we have, plans in place to make sure that funds are spent in a reasonable way. We have to, every year that we get a grant from them, we have to write a narrative that says what we're going to do with those funds. The Forest Action Plan is more of a longer view. It's a 5-year it's a 5-year process. The first Forest Action Plan was written in 2020. States were asked, and every state has to do one if they want to receive federal money. My understanding is that states were asked to provide an update to their 2020 plan. However, in Washington, we decided to completely execute a brand new Forest Action Plan. Not necessarily starting over, but just making sure that basically we were going to provide so many updates that it made more sense to create the plan anew for 2025. So this is our 2025 Forest Action Plan in the chat. Urban forestry starts on page 93. Of course, though, there is a lot of different forestry programs contained within the Forest Action Plan that receive federal funding from the Forest Service. So feel free to scan the table of contents and jump to any section that strikes your interest. But that's as hot off the press as we're going to get. I don't know exactly when it was published, but it is very, very recent.
Very good. Thanks for putting that in the chat, Ben. Mm-hmm. Any questions or comments for Ben? Okay. Well, continuing on then. This is a point that we have council roundtable for issues or things you want to bring up, maybe events that are happening that you're working with and your individual roles that might be relevant. Anyone have anything that you want to discuss or raise to the council?
I just want to raise the roof and be very happy for a moment. Pierce County has finally, we have an urban forestry planner hired.
Yay!
And we are finally getting both a urban forest management plan underway and a community urban forestry program underway. And These feels like they've been so huge. Nothing advocating for it. Really, a lot of the advocating for it in the county started when I started on this council and really seeing what was possible. And it's finally happening. So I am very excited. And a lot of the resources and things that have been pulled from being on this council and resources are going to be filtered into that. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, this is pretty good, pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Any other information that you want to share?
Sure, I'll hop in there.
Okay.
Well, big shout out to Ben and the team for those grants that he just discussed. Tacoma was one of the recipients of those grants in our official kickoff for our project that's called Safe Tree Routes to School. Is happening this month on the 21st. And so it'll be a community tree planting project along safe routes to school designated routes in Tacoma, and we're using trees as traffic calming infrastructure. And then we're also doing urban forestry curriculum administered in the schools as well to teach the students and their families about the benefits of trees to our community. And then it's also coupled with kind of a community tree planting distribution event out into the neighborhoods. And we'll be running that for the next couple of years. So
wonderful. Congrats.
Thanks.
Michael.
Hi, friends. Hey, I saw that bit about the guests there at the last second. Okay, so I put a couple items in the chat, which were kind of glanced over.
Saw that.
And I listed several of the bills. So a couple of them are having hearings tomorrow or the next day. And there's one in particular. The Seattle recently passed a comprehensive plan. And this plan has been appealed and it is currently in court. So actually, the comprehensive plan that the city council members are saying is so wonderful actually hasn't taken effect and won't take effect until the court decision. This involves the failure to provide for an environmental impact statement. And this is kind of a bellwether, a canary in the coal mine. If there are no appeals of government actions and building permits allowed, this will basically be the very last appeal on environmental grounds. And it essentially says that stormwater runoff picks up pollution, carries it into Puget Sound, and affects aquatic habitat, and there is no provision for assessing this potential damage. So it's huge. Also, I put in another item in the chat about how the Master Builders Association got a hold of the city council and mayor's office, and the former executive director of the Master Builders became the chief operating officer of the city of Seattle and got the zoning to allow building on 85% of all city lots. That's 85% of all city lots may have construction on them. So so far, again, this wonderful Mike Carey from Tacoma is the only person to mention it. He has said it twice, and everybody else here has sat on your hands. So I know as a former public employee that one of the main criteria for qualities of workers is that you have to be able to be told no, and also you have to be able to be told that your budget will be cut. And so apparently you people are all good with this new legislation allowing 6 units on every residential lot in the entire state, which will remove trees. And in Seattle, this is preventing the Seattle canopy cover goal of 30% to be achieved. So there you go. You just heard it from a citizen, and carry on with your discussions. Thanks. Oh yeah, I also asked which of you have testified in Olympia this session. And of course, nobody has testified in Olympia this session. Otherwise, you would have said it. All right, bye-bye now.
Mike, if I may, I think the assumption that when we talk about these issues with trees that you raised, there are many of us who believe that trees are important, valuable, and that saving trees is a valuable asset to the state, to the people of the state, to the communities of the state. So I just wanted to kind of put a check out there on that, because that's part of, I think, why a lot of people are here, is because we value trees and canopies and green spaces. And so I just wanted to, I couldn't help but just kind of check that. Appreciate you being here today, Mike. Thank you. We appreciate your input. Also, just FYI, I did forward your question on DNR representation, this council representation to the legislature, because I don't know, those are personal things. I passed that on to a staff member at DNR for answering. All right.
Lynn, I will just say that like our legislative team is like, they are folks who basically
professionals.
Yeah, our legislative team at DNR manages agency response to legislation. Oftentimes they will handle that themselves with input from subject matter experts. Occasionally subject matter experts will be called in if they feel like the discussions are more technical than they can address themselves.
Thank you, Ben, for that additional insight. That's wonderful. Okay. Anything else that anyone wants to bring up to the council?
I don't know, I see Mike's hand is still up, so I don't know if that's intentional or not.
Mike, do you still have another comment?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think you guys ought to create an outreach committee. I don't know really the members of this council. I would like to, and I don't know what you believe, and you need to share these opinions with the world out there, with the state, with your constituencies. This isn't just a one-way thing where whatever information you've taken in, you interpret it and then send it to this group. You need to actually educate the community. Yes, you are doing this in your individual constituencies, but to not have a website, to not have a YouTube channel, to not have Instagram or Facebook or any other vehicle means your opinion is secret. So I would just love to see your roster published. I know you've had 40% vacancies on this board for years. I know that you don't publish your minutes for months. There's some work that needs to be done. I'm so glad you got a whole bunch of new life here. This is really fantastic. 2026 could be a really good year for you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, sorry, Lynn, I just wanted to chime in and make sure that Mike has a link to the program website, where the council does have a website that has their roster posted, has their agendas and meeting minutes posted. Mike, you will notice on the council website, though, that meeting minutes are not posted until they are approved. And so, for example, the minutes that we are taking from this meeting will not be posted until they are voted on by the council at the next council meeting, which will be in April. So when you're seeing a lag in the minutes getting posted, it's because unofficial minutes are not posted, only official minutes are posted, and they're not official until they're voted on, which will be at the subsequent council meeting. I'm just gonna put the link in the chat so that you've got the link to the, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. What is that? I think that somehow hyperlinked. I was starting to type out a comment about how, the council, even though they are made up of folks who are not DNR employees, there it is. That's the boards and the Community Forestry Council thing. The council still does serve as an arm of DNR. They are advisory to the commissioner and to the agency. And so, you know, the design and the way the council is outlined in the RCW to serve the agency still, you know, there's still an obligation to basically meet the agency criteria. So, I mean, it's not as if this is a separate nonprofit that can advocate for themselves and fundraise for themselves and self-promote. There is an extent to which the activities of the council do have to run through the agency. So I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, anything else?
Lynn, I just did have a couple other comments that I should have included in my program update.
Sorry.
So it's just it was an oversight in my notes here. So the Tree Equity Collaborative, right? So we did reconvene the steering committee in the fall of 2025 for the Tree Equity Collaborative to say, like, okay, what's next for all of you? What do you want to see the Tree Equity Collaborative do? And so we've taken that feedback, and Elizabeth, who's our lead for the Tree Equity Collaborative, and I are going to meet with American Forests tomorrow, I think, to basically start mapping out that course for 2026 and putting some things in place. We've already kind of at least softly committed to a series of like half-day presentations around the state. We were holding these learning labs that were an opportunity. I know Mike hosted one in Tacoma. There was one in Spokane, there was one in Linwood, there was one in Tukwila, where those were half-day events where it was really profiling local projects and local people doing the work on the ground. The steering committee gave us feedback about a need for more training. And so at least the soft intent at this point is to create that opportunity for more in-person training on topics of tree equity around the state. So what that looks like and how we implement it kind of remains to be seen, but that's the kind of direction that we're leaning for that. So more to come on that, either in the TreeLink newsletter or at future council meetings. And the last piece is about invasive pests and emerald ash borer. So we have continued to lean into our invasive pest readiness work with communities. We are working in an interagency group to develop a resource and management guide. We have a contract that we have open with the Washington Invasive Species Council, and they're working with a consultant. The Resource and Management Guide is our answer to a statewide invasive species response plan. Since we don't have a detection of emerald ash borer in Washington State yet, and then we expect that it won't be the last detection of invasive pests, our Resource and Management Guide is a little bit more comprehensive. It doesn't assume that we're only talking about emerald ash borer. So that work is in development. And you'll certainly see more of that in this coming year. We're gonna, I forget the exact end date of the contract that we have with the Washington Invasive Species Council, but it will be finalized this year. And knowing that we do have detections of emerald ash borer in Vancouver, British Columbia suburbs, as well as in the Portland suburbs, I hate to say it, but I feel like we're kind of just waiting for a detection. Like, I think it's just really a matter of time. You know, so like I said, there has been no indication of any detections to date, but we feel like we've done a pretty good job getting the word out, and we know that in almost every other state where emerald ash borer has been detected, it has been detected by a professional who knows what they're looking for, not a member of the general public. So we've got enough eyes on the street, so to speak, that I think people are on the lookout, and if they find it, then we'll just have to deal with it when it gets here. It's like we're doing everything we can to help our community partners prepare for that, and certainly we're having a lot of internal conversations as well.
Great, Ben. Yeah, keep us updated on that issue with the board. I remember the conversations last year and the year before. So
yeah, and to answer your question, the steering committee for the Tree Equity Collaborative is not affiliated directly with the WCFC. There have been a number of times we've pulled steering committees together on a project basis. The pest readiness work started with one, Evergreen Communities started with one. Tree Equity Collaborative started with one, and then we kind of got away from the steering committee, but then we went back to them. But I know that on the council, Zandria and Megan have been involved, Mike's been involved. There's probably others of you also that have been involved, and I'm just not at top of mind right now, but thank you for your contributions in that regard too.
Yeah. Now, I just want to be, for new members, just clear that that is separate, but there is there's been personal overlap sometimes. So I just want to thank you. Other updates from anyone else? Comments, questions? New members, thoughts after your first session? Oh, all right. That's what it's going to be. No. Oh, go ahead, Colleen.
I'm just wondering, does this committee, I know we had Michael come in and make some comments as a public member. Is there ever or has there ever been a time where this committee could just have a regular standing appointment, 2 o'clock? We citizens around the state who have issues, who are running up against walls, who are just, I don't know, have tree questions. Can we ever, I'd be really curious to know if there's anything that we can do to help expedite or help folks who are having tree issues, who are just not finding answers in their communities, or would like us to share it with the powers that be. I don't know if that makes sense, but it seems like
It makes sense.
people get really frustrated when they run up against bureaucracy. And they want to be heard, they want their issues to be shared, and it's like, if it's something that we can help with, then maybe it would be a good role for this committee too.
It makes good sense. I think that's something we take into consideration as a thought. Maybe discuss internally as well, and consider that. So that's a good, ideas like that are, I think, great.
Yeah, anytime like that, it never hurts to ask them, right?
Yeah.
I think it does speak to our program kind of has a reputation for just being like, well, what if we didn't do it that way? Like, what if we just tried something new? Like, what would that look like, and how would it go? So I think comments or questions like that are kind of very on brand for our program. I think too that this council, in its construction and its membership and its operation, is a lot more I would say experimental than other state councils. So we have that going for us, and I think this is just another thing we could do to ask. But the one question that I would pose back to you, Colleen, is that part of the challenge is that people are frustrated with bureaucracy and not getting something done, and then they come to a standing meeting of this group expecting that the council is going to solve their problem for them, then that may be another version of bureaucracy that's not helpful to them, right? If we then have to refer them back to the program staff or somewhere else. So it could be a place where they could be heard, but I would contend it isn't necessarily the role of the council to wade into local issues and make a statement on behalf of the agency.
True, but I also think, if we had a section open for public comment, just for people to come and say, hey, this is an issue and change needs to be made, or I'm running, and it could be that someone in this council might have the ability to help that person. You don't know. Especially if maybe they're from your community and you had no idea that they were experiencing this, then they could get help, but also just to let, just to make us aware of issues that might be arising that we didn't know about. And it's just a way for people to have another voice. And it's something that we can do and maybe be a little useful.
Yes, that way I agree with you, and we'll certainly ask the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Colleen. Jess? You're muted, Jess.
Yes, there we go, yeah. So first off, going back to the work plan, this seems like a very hot topic and something that needs to be maybe looked at and addressed during this program year. But also I have heard this on multiple occasions. And that is for many Washingtonians, especially within the urban areas, their encounter and experience with DNR is through its urban forestry program. Because they're so detached or just not involved or not aware or not within so many of the natural forested areas that are out of their reach. So for the public, when it comes to DNR, it's this urban, it is the community urban vision program.
Agree. Other input thoughts? Well, sorry, Duane, go.
I'd just kind of like to add, since my market is the retail customer homeowners, and it's an uphill challenge to get people to plant trees and care for them. They look at reasons not to plant a tree. They're too messy. They get too big. I'm part of the tree council in mid-Columbia, and we had a linden tree just to sign up for to give away as a free tree. And so many people did not want to sign up because that tree got too big. So this year we're going to try something that stays smaller. So it's a real challenge. Another thing in my area is they don't want to plant trees because it's a desert area. There's no trees here. And I just look at it and say, well, then there should be no people. So, I mean, I see a lot of good things with the council who works for the DNR, doing a lot of education on pruning, taking care of trees. So that's what I got.
Thank you. Thank you, Duane. Any others? Okay, I'm giving you all back, not me like I'm in control of your lives, but you've got about 25 minutes extra to your day. Thank you so much. We will see you next time. And feel free to email Whit, myself, Ben. It's all good.
Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
And actually,
that was my next thing.
Hold on, Lynn. Before we do that, though, sorry to hold. But do we want to review action items before the meeting closes? And did we select a person for action items before? Did we select someone to specifically track action items?
Well, I thought that we didn't replace me in doing that. So, and I'm leading the meeting, so I've not been doing that. But I have been making copious notes. I will go through my notes and see if there are any action items from today's meeting and fill everybody in. Good point. The only outstanding action item that we discussed at the beginning of the meeting was, refresh me, it's been a few hours. Wasn't there one that was, they're all, we talked about, huh?
Yeah, we needed a volunteer for the equity vote, which was Adam. Right?
We got that. We got that. We got the commissioner's letter's been mailed out.
Review the work plan.
We did that. I don't think we have any outstanding action items.
Please put me down for asking the question that Colleen posed. I don't know how you want to phrase that, Colleen.
If you want a public comments, you know, just a time slot for public comments. So it's really easy to just say, hey, you know, if you want to, and just give them a time period, because that's what I like it when the city council does that. I find it really interesting to listen to everybody's 2 or 3 minutes, you know, and they just let them have it or whatever. It's kind of fascinating.
Colleen, can I ask a clarification question then? Because that's I'll do that, Ben. I'll put you on that for that action item. I thought earlier you had talked about asking questions related to trees that they can't find elsewhere, but now you're saying a public comment period. Those are two different things in my mind.
No, that wasn't me who talked about trees that you can't find elsewhere. I was.
Well,
just
that was my
that,
word. I thought.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just saying, would it be appropriate? Would it be helpful to our commissioner if we acted as a place to gather the concerns and then share them, just give a little synopsis so that we have a period of public comment. So people like Michael, could come in, have a voice, share, whether it's they're having issues or there's things that, they're just struggling to get the information up the chain, and then maybe we can help with that.
Thank you for that clarification, because I kind of misinterpreted a bit what you had said in your first time. So I like the clarification.
No worries.
And Ben, I have your name by that.
Good, thank you.
So that's good. Jess? Nada? Just say if you had any last comments. No.
Final. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still around, so y'all
I know.
Listen to me for a while longer.
Oh, I know that. I just wanted to see if you had any. All right.
It didn't take you long to put me to shame in your organizations and your extensive knowledge of protocol. So thank you so much for stepping up to be chair.
Not true. It's just a little different, but you're great. And like you said, you're not going anywhere for a while. So you are a resource to me, I guarantee it. All right, everyone, you've got some extra time. Thank you so much. We'll see you at our next meeting. Motion adjourned. Sorry, folks, we didn't do that. We got sidetracked.
Motion second.
Okay, there you go. All accepted? All agree?
Yep. Have a good one,
I think we lost
everybody.
our quorum a while ago. Hey, thank you, everybody.
Good job.
See you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.